Well, good afternoon and welcome to Bulldogs Behind the Scenes, where we delve into the people, places, and research connected to the University of Minnesota Duluth. Today, we are excited to explore secret spaces of the Glensheen estate. Before we dive in, let's take a brief pause to allow everyone a moment to log on. Well, my name is Molly Clevin, and I'm part of the UMD Alumni Relations team. Today, we have the pleasure of taking a behind-the-scenes look at the unique and secret spaces at the Glensheen Mansion, led by the Glensheen Director Dustin Heckman. Before we begin, I'd like to highlight some of our past programs. We have explored places such as the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, Amsoil Arena, the Superior Hiking Trail, the proposed UMD Sales Center, the UMD Chocolate Lab, Romano Gym, and many more. You can access all of these events on demand on our website at d.umn.edu/alumni. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded on our Alumni Relations website. You will also receive an email with a link once it is ready. We will also have time at the end of the presentation to answer your live questions. To submit a question, please use the question and answer button on the bottom of your screen. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dustin Heckman. Dustin came to Glensheen as their director in November 2021. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in history from Minnesota State University, Mankato, and has worked professionally in museums for the last 17 years. A resident of two harbors, Dustin enjoys exploring the North Shore and enjoying the beauty of Lake Superior in all seasons. It is now my pleasure to hand it over to Dustin.
Thank you, Molly. It's great to be welcomed back to talk about Glensheen with our UMD alumni. So today I'm excited to take you behind the ropes to see spaces that you might not be able to see or notice unless you take one of our specialty tours, such as our Lock and Key tour. So that is a guided tour that we have right now that goes on during the summer and fall months and is on a limited run. Right now it's offered 7 days a week. Otherwise, during the fall, it'll be offered just on Saturdays and Sundays. So let's get started. So today's presentation is broken down into 4 different areas, and I'll introduce each one as we get to them. But before that, I'd like to thank a couple of students that helped me with what you're about to see. First, our student administrative assistant, Taylor, helped in designing the presentation layout and pulling together information that you'll hear today. Her past experience as one of our interpreters really came in handy in pulling this all together. Secondly, those cool images that you see in front of you for each section were designed by our creative coordinator, Allie. She has tremendous talent, and we are fortunate to have her at Glensheen to help produce graphics for our marketing communication efforts. And this is one of those big things for Glensheen is we employ so many UMD students. Here we have about 35 to 50 at any given time. And so being able to utilize some of their talents in putting this all together has just been amazing. So starting out, I wanted to give you a brief overview of Glensheen as an introduction to those who may not know the whole history of the estate, but also as a refresher for those who are familiar with it. So I'm not going to go super in depth, but I'll give you enough to whet your appetite. Glensheen Mansion was home to Chester and Clara Congdon, their 6 children, adopted nephew, and servants. It was built between 1905 to 1909. The 22-acre estate was constructed for $854,000. In today's money, it would cost more than $27 million to build. The estate you tour today is 12 acres of that original 22. Chester was a successful lawyer for the Oliver Mining Company and a businessman with investment in Minnesota's Mesabi and Vermilion iron ranges, which is how he made his money. So if you look at the map on the right, the Mesabi and Vermilion ranges are the 2 northernmost that show up in Minnesota. The University of Minnesota was gifted Glensheen by the Congdon family in 1968, but did not take full possession until 1977. Glensheen opened to the public on July 28, 1979, and since that time, we have welcomed over 4.1 million guests through the doors of Glensheen. Chester Congdon was also an advocate for the Duluth area, wanting it to expand and become even more successful than it already was. One of his visions was to have the construction of the North Shore Scenic Drive, which expands along the beautiful North Shore of Minnesota. Although it was built well after Chester passed away, it was his dream that helped make this construction possible. In his estate, he did leave funds that Clara appropriated towards the building of the first section of the North Shore Scenic Drive. Recently, Glensheen staff adopted a 2.5-mile portion of Highway 61 between the Lafayette Bluff Tunnel and the Rustic Inn near the Castle Danger area. And this was to honor Chester's legacy. So each spring and fall, we will clean up trash along this route to help keep the North Shore looking its best for all to enjoy, and also to help folks remember that this was part of Chester's legacy and his dream for the North Shore. All right, so now let's talk about some hidden spaces. These are typically located within the buildings on the estate or special features built into a building. So what we've done here is we've supplemented some of the photos of these spaces with video so you can get a sense of what these are like. And so I'll introduce each slide and then try to give you a little bit of background around it, but definitely want you to enjoy the video that you see. So our first stop is the second floor of the carriage house. And so on the carriage house, it's one of the first buildings you see when you tour. And so you'll travel through on the main floor, you see the cow stanchions and the horse stables before you get into the gift shop. Above that area is an open space that you're seeing in the video here that is divided by doorways running the entire length of the building. This space is currently used to store our storm windows, collection pieces, and other items. As you saw just a moment ago in the video, there's also a bedroom up there where one of the male servants would have lived. We'll touch on a few of the artifacts as we go along in this presentation. So what you're seeing here is kind of the end round of that. So you can see a lot of collection pieces there and rounding back, and then you see through the doorway back the other direction. So that is the full length of the second floor of the carriage house. So this would be what the public typically does not get to see. So one of the artifacts you probably saw as we went through there was a 1905 tandem bicycle. These were first introduced in the 1890s and officially patented by Danish inventor Michael Petersen in 1898. This bike you're looking at is especially interesting because it has a leather seat and wooden rims, which was a common feature until the creation of aluminum rims in the 1930s. While we're not exactly sure who rode this bike, it's been part of the Congdon collection, and we love preserving this interesting piece of history. Now, if you've been to one of our concerts on the pier, this area is going to look pretty familiar to you. The boathouse and pier are well-known features at Glensheen. Up until the 1950s, it was noted on navigational maps of Lake Superior. So if you were navigating through, you actually would see this marked out on those maps because there are lights there associated with it that you would have seen from the water. The boathouse was home to the Congdon's yacht, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. The pier originally extended 60 feet into Lake Superior and 55 feet over to the right, creating an L shape to protect the boathouse from the brutal waves. The pier has since been taken down a bit, and the boathouse no longer is protected from the waves. In the picture on the right, you can see the outline of the older section of the pier that is no longer there. As you can imagine, without the protection of this breakwater, our shoreline has taken quite a beating over the years. So from what I've understood, it was out the 1950s or so is when that end section of the pier was taken off. What you see at the end of the pier now was a reconstructed end done in the 1990s to kind of stave that off. But as you can see in the photo, there's a lot of debris from that pier that are laying there in the water. So it's not easy for navigational traffic to come through there. But we try to just point this out, especially on clear days, you can really see that outline. Someday we do want to restore the boathouse and pier to what they were originally, but those plans are on hold right now while we address other preservation projects and maintenance. So I mentioned the Congdon's yacht, and so here is the Hesperia, which was named after Clara. Her middle name was Hesperia, and it was 53 feet long by 12 feet wide. It had red velvet seats that could be taken out and are now stored in the second floor carriage house hallway. You may have seen a glimpse of them in that video that I showed before. Built by the Bath Marine Construction Company in Bath, Maine, the Hesperia had a 4-stroke, 6-cycle gasoline engine. The Congdon's adopted nephew, Alfred Bannister, was the one who captained the ship on its maiden voyage from Maine to Duluth, arriving at Glensheen on July 22nd, 1911. So Alfred got to take this ship all the way from the East Coast through the Great Lakes to Duluth, where it eventually arrived at Glensheen. In 1916, the Hesperia burned down in the Grand Marais area. No one was injured in that. Eventually, the Congdons had it brought to Two Harbors and would later sell a hull for a total of $300. As we move into the mansion, a very favorite part of people's tour is the linen glass stained glass windows at the top of the second floor landing. So this was made from the Linden Glass Company out of Chicago. They were a very successful company from 1884 to 1934. There are many other pieces within the mansion that also feature linden glass. The glass is stained in layers and can show different colors depending on the lighting. It also has the original lead that separated the glass panes. So, for instance, if you look at this in the morning, you'll see certain colors. As it goes down into the day and the sun starts to set, those colors, especially in the Tudor roses, will start to change. So that's always a cool feature to be able to see on your different chance to visit Glensheen. In recent years, all the glass was removed to preserve the panes and regrouted by conservators at the Midwest Art Conservation Center. So that's what you're seeing on the left was the last set of windows being taken out. Our friends at Old World Windows were the ones that helped us take those out carefully and block up that window before we sent it to MAC down in the Twin Cities for conservation work. And then when it was finished, they came back and put them back in for us. So all 3 of those window sections had been restored and now are in great shape. But there's something else on this landing that I want to point out that is more of those secret things. So listen to this video real quick and I'll explain it. So on that second floor landing, there are secret compartments on each side of the hallway connected to the bench. Those compartments definitely were not secrets to the Congdons, and their staff used these to hold cleaning supplies. So you saw the one get open, and then directly across there that you're looking at right now, there's also a secret compartment there. So there's one on each side that they could have used. Right now, if you came on a specialty tour, you would get a chance to see those come open, and we would show you some of the fixtures from that grandfather clock you see there at the end of the landing. Another space that you can experience on a Lock and Key tour is Claire's balcony. It overlooks the beautiful Tisher Creek area and was a space just for her and Chester to enjoy. It also looks out towards Lake Superior, the boathouse, and the formal garden. So to access this space, you exit through the double doors that you see on the left in Claire's dressing room, and it's truly a breathtaking view any time of year, but I especially love it during the fall color season. You know, I just got to play this video again because it is just gorgeous. You can see the formal garden there. You look out on Tisher Creek. Now imagine that view right there with fall colors in full bloom. It is just amazing to see. Now, one of the coolest items in the Glensheen collection is the silver safe. You may be thinking to yourself right now, I have no clue where this is, but every guest has walked directly past us and never known it was there. So located in the main floor hallway, this is hidden behind a door. So a wooden door, you see it on the far left picture there, someone holding the door open. And we still use this safe today. And that's why it's not readily accessible to the public. The safe was intended to store the Congdon silver collection each night. So as they brought it out for dinner, they would use it, clean it, and put it right back in the safe. Although the safe is on wheels, which you can see in that far left picture, if you look towards the bottom, you can see the wheels that it's set on. This safe cannot be removed from its current location without destroying the wood paneling surrounding it. So the way this was done is they had rolled the safe into that space and then finished building the walls around it. So whether that was intentional or not, now you cannot slide those wheels through the doorway without taking all that wood paneling off. So with Chester, nothing would surprise me that this was probably intentional, and it would not allow for folks to try to wheel that out of there. So to access the safe, you had to open 3 separate doors before seeing the inside. So what you're seeing here on the left, so we've opened the wooden door, you see the first red door. You open the red door, there's another door. And then you open that door, and you finally get to see inside the safe. Ta-da! This is the interior of the safe. So you can see there it includes some drawers and a smaller safe for extra secure storage. So as you can see, we do have artifacts in here, including some silver, but this is where we tend to keep some of those things permanently to protect them and keep them extra safe. And so it's very limited access for folks to be able to see this. And it even takes quite a bit for me as the director to get access to this. So, you know, it's not just the general public, it's also, they keep me out of this. Not sure why, but they do. Next, we're going to talk about the winter garden. So this is the longest room in the mansion, and it's located on the south side of the billiards and amusement room. So as you're going through the billiards and amusement room, you probably see those windows that look out to another space, and you probably wondered, what is that space for? So that is the winter garden. It was a space where the Congdons would have kept their potted plants in the wintertime. The Congdon children and grandchildren have also talked about using the space to roller skate. Can you imagine being a kid, having a wide open room like this that you could go through and roller skate from one end to the other? It would have been a thrill, honestly. Today, we use it primarily as an event space. We've hosted weddings, bridal showers, rehearsal dinners, corporate training events, and many university events in this space. So if this is something where you'd like to have your next event, be sure to reach out to us and we can make that happen. So a neat feature, now we're going to move back outside, is actually there are some trail systems. Here what you're seeing is what we call the Tisher Creek Tunnel. So this goes under London Road. The picture on the left-hand side, you see Chester admiring the creek and maybe looking at some trout going through there. So this feature is part of the estate, is part of Chester's vision. He incorporated 2 different trail systems into the building of Glensheen. The East Trail runs along Bent Brook. So if you've walked along Bent Brook into the wooded area, you'll see like some steps there pretty easily around another tunnel that goes under London Road. But this here is the West Trail, which runs under Tisher Creek, along Tisher Creek and under London Road. So this goes all the way up to where there was a reservoir that helped feed the water for Glensheen for many, many years. So that was where the trail system would eventually lead you. So some of that is still part of the creek bed. Other parts now are part of private property. So a few years ago, studies were done on the feasibility of restoring the trail systems with the help of the Northern Bedrock Preservation Corps. But additional work would definitely be needed to make this a reality. Some of that being, if we wanted to reopen the trail, working with the landowners adjacent to the trail to see how they would feel about that. For now, we enjoy the peace and tranquility of Tisher Creek from the hillside. I can say I've been down on this trail once. My predecessor, Dan Hartman, actually took me and a few others down there many years ago, and I was able to walk under that tunnel to the other side. It's really a cool thing. And so hopefully someday we can make it part of the regular tour for everybody. Now we're going to go to the gardener's cottage. So this is the first building you see as you enter the parking lot. And this was home to the head gardener for many decades. The Winus family, George and Robert, both lived here during their time as head gardener with their families. Now it is office space and a green room for events. On the back of the gardener's cottage, so if you look at that picture on the left, you can see there's a faint triangle that shows up on the back of the building. This is where there were 4 greenhouses attached. You see those on the right. So each greenhouse had their own purpose. There was the general house that housed seedlings to be replanted into the garden each year. There was a rose house where roses were grown for the family throughout the year. A carnation house, as carnations symbolized power and prestige at that time, would have been the 3rd one. And the 4th one, which is the larger one you see there on the far left, was the palm house. This is where they grew exotic plants that don't normally grow in Minnesota, such as banana trees and palm trees. Due to the expenses of heating and maintaining the greenhouses, they were torn down on January 5th, 1971. One of the other things that I heard that provided an exceptional amount of difficulty is you see those big trees right behind the greenhouses. That's part of the alley of trees that were on the East Drive. Sometimes those branches would break and they would fall directly on the glass roof of the greenhouse. So imagine having to replace those roof tiles over and over again. So that became part of that challenge. A long-held dream for Glensheen is to eventually rebuild the greenhouse in the future. Again, those plans are on hold until we work through some other preservation and maintenance projects, but that is something we would love to bring back and have that accessible for people to go through. All right, so now we've walked through a few cool spaces, and now I want to talk about some cool artifacts that we have in those spaces, or just ones that maybe you should take notice of the next time you are touring Glensheen. So the Congdons were well known for traveling around the globe. One of those trips took them aboard the Olympic, which was a sister ship of the Titanic on the White Star Line. We know this because of a luggage tag still visible on a trunk that is stored in the luggage room on the 3rd floor of the mansion. What you're looking at here, this particular box carried a clock for Clara Congdon's chauffeur, James Roper. So this is in that 2nd floor of the carriage house that I showed you before. It traveled aboard the steamer Arabic from Liverpool to New York. The White Star Line tag is still visible on it, as that's what you're looking at, that front sticker in the middle picture, as well as the customs form on top of the box. So if you look at the far left picture, you'll see that kind of yellowish faded tag just above that blue tag. That was the customs form that declared what was inside of there. So that's a pretty cool artifact, and one that one of our student interpreters had shown me and thought it would be great to share with you. So what carriage house would be complete without carriages? So we're going to talk about the original carriages of the Congdons. Most of these were Brewster carriages, which were some of the most expensive ones at that time. The first image on the left is a Brewster Phaeton, which is a carriage that Chester Congdon would have driven himself. In the middle is the Brewster Panel Boot Victoria, which was mainly meant for women to be chauffeured in. It has a lower swoop on the side of the carriage for easier entry into the cabin. So you can see that there towards the back of the carriage itself. You see that swoop there. That would have been what I was referring to. The final carriage on the right-hand side there was the Brewster Brougham, which is a carriage meant for businessmen. This carriage has a completely closed-off cabin to protect from the elements and allowed for writing to be protected. It also has a sliding panel so that the passenger can speak with the chauffeur. And you can see it also has lights on there too, little gas lanterns. A couple other the carriages that we have stored up there. The one on the left is a Studebaker mountain wagon, which would have been a carriage that could have fit the entire family. So you may have known Studebaker as a popular car company, but they also did make carriages before they made the automobile. This carriage has the original canvas on it to protect passengers against weather and rain. So that is amazing that we've been able to preserve that canvas and that it's still as well intact as it is today. And on the right, you'll see a Concord side spring buggy. This was meant for the Congdon servants to run errands or to take on a day off. And it was meant for just 1 or 2 passengers. So this would have been what they would have run their errands on or had access to on days where they were not working on the estate. So you see all these carriages and you wonder, okay, if this is in the 2nd floor, how did you get these back down to the 1st floor? And that was through this lift. So if you've ever stood inside the gift shop and you're standing next to the carriage that we have down there and you look up, you'll see like a little box area that looks like it is movable. That is the lift. So this is the top view of it, and it uses the same mechanics as a pulley. So if you look on the right-hand picture, you'll see that system there. So this would lift the carriages between 1 floor. It only took 1 person to operate. It was that well of a system, so it had a rope and a counterweight. But if you wanted to take out a certain carriage, you would roll it onto the lift, use the pulley to bring it down, roll it off, and bring the lift back up. And when you came back with the carriage, you'd put it back on the lift and use the pulley system to bring it back up, and you could stow it away in the loft. Pretty neat ingenuity there. Now, as we go back to the mansion, I want to talk about another feature that's pretty state-of-the-art, which Chester liked to put some state-of-the-art stuff in there. And this piece of technology, I would be willing to bet, myself included, we would all love to have this in our homes now. And this is a central vacuuming system. So this was installed in 1908, and it's called the Kenny system from the Vacuum Cleaner Company of New York. This was patented back in 1903. Henry Clay Frick had one of these installed in a building in Pittsburgh in 1902. If you're not familiar with the name Henry Clay Frick, he was the right-hand man of Andrew Carnegie at US Steel. So it's very possible that Chester and him would have had some interactions, and maybe Henry had given Chester some inspiration for putting this in. So when the staff went to vacuum, they would turn the whole system on. So there is a compressor down in the basement just off of the boiler room. And then they would have a cart that would have hoses and attachments on it that would plug into the wall, like you see there in the far right picture. So you flip the top off and you plug it right into the wall port. So these hoses were quite cumbersome and long, approximately 40 feet in length. So most likely the houseman would have likely handled all the vacuuming duties just because of the weight of them and how cumbersome they were to move around. So a couple of these next few slides are going to feature specific furniture pieces. So this is in Marjorie's bedroom. This would be Marjorie Congdon, the eldest daughter of Chester and Clara. This was her writing desk that was in her room, and it had a little bit of subtle security built into it. There's secret compartments hidden in the desk. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you a video of this, and you'll see what would need to be done to access those hidden compartments. So you see here, you have to take out one of the drawers. So it gives you that. This is a simple drawer. And then there are a couple of locking mechanisms back behind there that you would have clicked, and then out would have popped the secret compartment that could have stored stationery, personal letters, maybe a journal or diary in there based on the size. But this is what Marjorie had built into her desk, and you can see it simply all just fits and clicks right back together. Well, her mother Clara also had secret compartments in each side of her desk. And so we're going to show you a little video of where those were as well. So you can see here going up, there's a little compartment right there on the bottom that you would open, could have hidden some different things in there. A matching one is on the opposite side as well. So this would have been where they could have kept personal correspondence or any documents that they didn't want folks to find. And so this would have been right at Clara's writing desk in her bedroom. Pretty neat things that we're finding here at Glensheen. And so this next section was specifically included because during the registration period where you were signing up for this webinar, Molly had gotten a lot of questions about preservation of the estate and how we take care of the estate. So I thought we're going to add this in. If you want to go back, my last presentation about 2 years ago was all about preservation and restoration work and how we do that at Glensheen. So you can go back and watch that again sometime. But this is going to give you a little snippet of it and answer some of those questions that folks had. So obviously it takes a lot of work to maintain a property like Glensheen. So how do we exactly do that? So Glensheen is considered a self-sustaining department within the university, which means we need to earn or raise as much revenue as possible to succeed. Our general operating budget is just under $2.4 million. Of that, 2% comes from the university. So that means we have to raise the rest through ticket sales, gift shop sales, venue rentals, and other methods. So we have quite a big lift there. But the university does help us with some additional funds for maintenance outside of our general operating budget. And that we can use donations, grants, or surplus earned revenue to make up the difference. So our goal each year is to have enough surplus revenue to not only provide a reserve fund for the upcoming year, but also allow us to try out new ideas and address capital needs. This is why it's so important that people come tour Glensheen. Every guest helps fund this important work and keeps Glensheen open to the public. So with that, when you buy a ticket to Glensheen, when you buy a membership, all of that is going in helping us with the preservation of the estate. Just to give you a general idea, last year we spent between $800,000 to $1 million in maintenance on the estate, using grants to help fund some of that, some donations. We were able to use surplus ticket revenue to put a new fire alarm system in the mansion. And then also utilizing some of those funds from the university that are set aside for maintenance. So we've done quite a bit. We're doing a lot this year as well. And so it's setting up for future projects. So we're just going to touch on a couple of projects we are currently working on or wrapped up recently that you may have heard about or maybe are curious about. So the bigger one is the formal garden. So the garden originally had several different layout designs, but the Congdons eventually settled with the current design from 1907. So that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you see more of what occurred during the Winus era, the father and son head gardeners, where the space transitioned from a less classical look and introduced a more plush design. This was following Chester's death, and it's not known of if that was the Winus's personal thoughts of how it should go based off their own experiences, or if this was more of a desire from Clara to have this direction go forward. So over the span of 2 years, with significant support from the state legislature in the form of a $4 million bonding request, the gardens were restored to their original 1907 look. We reopened this in October of 2022, and it was a great celebration, and the gardens look absolutely amazing. Our head gardener, Emily Ford, and her students do an amazing job of keeping the grounds looking as great as they do. But this is an example of where a significant investment helped us get a major capital need taken care of. And now you can kind of see it through the trees there. This is the Bentbrook Bridge on the north side of the estate. So during the Congdon's time, this forked bridge would have been space to store carriages or help with at-home deliveries. Today, it's our main pathway for guests traveling to and from the mansion. Due to its age, so it's well over 100 years old, and the effects of freeze-thaw cycles in our winter climate, we've had to make this a pedestrian-only bridge. Lighter vehicles like golf carts and snow removal equipment, they can get over this without a problem, but we do have to stop larger delivery vehicles from utilizing it. So there is a weight limit on this now. I should preface, this bridge is completely safe for folks to cross. We just are taking precautions to ensure that further freeze-thaw cycles don't affect it with excess weight going over, which I can say we had it checked by an engineer a few weeks ago, and has shown no additional wear and tear from the last survey done 2 years ago. But right now we are doing some survey and design work to prepare for its eventual repair in the next couple of years. What we're trying to learn right now is based off its current state, can we fix it in place, or do we need to completely rebuild it from the ground up? And so these are the sorts of things that we talk through all the time, and why you can see where some preservation projects have to get put on hold while we address some of these larger projects that affect that tour path and that tour route. So that is what I've got for you today. I really appreciate you all being here and listening. And if you want to help Glensheen out, you can donate using this QR code. If that's not your thing and you want to talk to somebody and talk about how you can be part of donating to Glensheen, reach out to our folks at the advancement office here at UMD. They are great and very much willing to talk with you and help you meet your donation expectations with a place where it can go like Glensheen. And so with that, Molly, I think I'm going to ask you to come back and join me here, and we will take some questions that maybe have been popping up while I've been talking.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dustin, for giving us that behind the ropes tour. Very, very interesting things. And again, now is the time that we're taking questions. And so on the bottom of the screen, you'll see like a little word bubble with a question mark. Feel free to submit your questions on there. It looks like we have one that came in during the presentation. Otherwise, as Dustin mentioned, there are questions that were submitted in advance that we will get to as well. So I think we'll start with this one that came in here. Kind of circling back to some of the desk spaces, wondering how you discovered the hidden desk spaces and the cupboards on the landing.
So that's a great question. These were discovered well before my time here at Glensheen. So there may have been some, remarks to it in maybe Claire's diary or journal, or it may have just been knowledge passed down from previous staff or the family to docents at that time when we opened to the public in 1979. And so that's where a lot of this was most likely discovered. We're glad it was because it's something cool to talk about.
And then going back towards the carriage house, you had given us a glimpse at all the different types of carriages. Just wondering, does Glensheen ever take those carriages out?
We do not, and that is to remain with its preservation. So one of the things you didn't really get to see in those photos is we actually have jacks underneath each one of these to help protect and not pull that weight down on those axles so that the carriage doesn't deteriorate that way. So it helps protect it for long term, so we can still share it with guests.
And so our guests, if they take the lock and key tour, are able to go up to the carriage where the carriages are stored?
Yes, that is one of the spaces you get to go see. So you'd get up close and personal with each one of those carriages and be able to see that lift a little bit easier.
Perfect. There was a question that came in wondering about plans to make the house maybe more sustainable in terms of renewable energy.
That's a great question. It's something that we have talked quite a bit about. So some of the things that we've incorporated into that is we've converted most of the floors over to LED lighting, which has had a dual effect, not only the energy savings of being more sustainable, but also the brightness level that it brought in and made it so people could see the details a little bit better. We were really amazed when we saw that and started moving across different rooms that was possible. As far as other measures, it would be great someday to incorporate solar wind energy into what we're doing here at Glensheen. Unfortunately, with a historic property like this, there's only so many spaces that we can utilize for that, and also to make sure it's safe for those items. But as we look to the future and in future improvements, we are looking at ways that we can incorporate that into other spaces to where it can help fuel the rest of the estate.
So in terms of the accessibility of the estate, how does the estate work on physical accessibility while maintaining the historic value?
This is a challenge that we face on a daily basis. So one of the first spots that we look at is our pathway system, which right now is definitely having its challenges. And we are working to design better pathways across the estate for folks to travel. And so that is like the main just baseline physical accessibility thing that we're working on. From a touring standpoint, what we have implemented many years ago was a limited mobility tour pricing. So this is for folks that, because right now, accessibility wise, you can get on the first floor. We have a ramp right up to the front door, and you can also get in through the basement. So you can see those lower two floors, but you miss out on the second floor, or if you're with people that want to see the third floor, you miss out on that. So we have designed a video that goes on a tablet that folks can watch so they get to see those same experiences. One of the other things I would tell folks is we have an app that we recently updated. You can download that, and that will take you through all those floors as well. It'll give you exactly what each interpretive panel in those rooms say. It'll give you pictures of that area. And so that's another way to make that accessible. So that's just the physical accessibility. I'm going to also address from an access point of maybe folks that have income barriers and things like that. We are a site for part of a national program called Museums for All. And so what this does is it provides access to folks on SNAP benefits. We've expanded that to like Minnesota Care, Badger Care. And so you can get in for $3 a person, and that gets you into our classic tours, our full mansion tours. And so we're trying to do our part there as well to alleviate some of those financial barriers for folks to get in. We also have many free community events that we put on. Each year we put on a free community day, the first Sunday in January, which is open to the public to come through and see the house all decorated up for Christmas. And then during the summertime, we have our free Wednesday night events in June, July, and August that are free and open to the public that you can come to, which includes our beer garden in June and then concerts on the pier in July and August.
And kind of dovetailing off of this conversation, there was a question around an elevator that is part of the state and wondering if that could ever be restored and used to get folks to the upper level.
Yes, so the elevator we have in there, we do have to have it inspected each month by the state. And as part of that, it's not designed right now for passenger traffic, so having a human go on there. We have looked at what it would take to put that elevator into service as a passenger elevator. Unfortunately, we would have to take out quite a bit of some interior spaces to make that work. I know some buildings, historic buildings, have looked at adding it onto the outside of the building, and so then you come in through a different part of each floor. So that has been talked about as well. Just at the moment, we don't have any plans for that, which I know is unfortunate, and it's just the nature of having a historic building.
This is kind of a fun question. Have any movies ever been filmed at Glensheen?
Yes, there are. Probably the most famous one is, oh, I'm gonna butcher the name of this. Something About Your Mother. I know I have a copy of it right over there, beyond my reach right now. But I know that one, I believe, was made in the 60s or 70s. And so that is the most well-known one. So if somebody, save me from myself, and if you know the exact name, put it in the chat or something so that we can get the correct name of that before. We have had other filmmakers approach us about doing films here, and we vet those as we can and try to work them as best we can.
Looks like the name of the movie is You'll Like My Mother.
It's the one. I remember the last word, but after that I could not remember it. So thank you.
Okay, question about the clothing. Do you have more clothing that is not on display? And what are the conservation steps you use for the clothing that is currently being displayed?
So of the clothing that you do see on your tour route, there's still about 80 to 95% of our textile collection is in storage. So you're seeing a very small part of that. And that's where we've had some different exhibits, gowns of Glensheen, the Gibson girls and guys exhibit that we had last year. Those are other opportunities for us to bring some of that out and to look at some of that. The way we preserve it is, so anything that's in storage, we have it in flat boxes with acid-free tissue and keeping it laying flat so it doesn't have the creases and things like that. For things that we have on exhibit or hanging up, we use padded hangers, and depending on the uniform, if it has, or the textile, if it has the ability to support its own weight, we can use that to help take some of that support away from the artifact itself.
So another restoration question, wondering about the bedroom wallpaper that was being restored, wondering if that is finished.
Yeah, so we've been working in Helen's room for many years on putting this together. So about a year ago, we actually finally found a vendor again that could do the wallpaper for us. Unfortunately, we discovered that we were still having water infiltration issues into that room. And so now we have figured out what is causing that, which essentially, to not get too technical here, the mortar that we have around the outside of the mansion is too hard, and is keeping water trapped inside the walls rather than releasing it like it should do. And so that is sending water in and damaging walls. So we're looking to address that first, and then we will be putting in the wallpaper in Helen's room and finishing that off, and it'll look absolutely amazing. So stay tuned on that. We're trying to address the underlying issue first, and then we will tackle that part.
And then we had a question about the Chester Creek Stone Bridge, wondering if that's open, and if it's not, are there plans to restore it?
Yeah, so I'm assuming the person is asking about the Stone Arch Bridge over Tisha Creek. And so, yes, it is still closed. This is a little bit more of a complicated restoration project. And part of it is the makeup of the bridge itself, the work along the shoreline that would need to be done if we do this work, and then at some point talking with the DNR, because Tisha Creek is a designated trout stream, to find out if we can actually do work in the creek to accomplish this. And so those are some of the factors there. The best estimate that I've been given is that to repair and preserve that bridge, we're probably looking at close to $1 million. But that is also a contractor's best guess, because we haven't been able to design the specs yet and get a better idea of what we need to do to stabilize that bridge. But right now it is closed, unfortunately. I miss being able to go up there as well, but it's for the safety of all, of just making sure that that doesn't eventually collapse and fall into the creek.
So we have a couple of questions related to tours and admissions. The first question is wondering if there's consideration to bring back guided tours of the full mansion. The self-guided tours are great, but it's also wonderful to have one-on-one conversations. So just wondering if the guided in-person tours are on the table, or back on the table.
So we have been able to bring them back in limited fashion. So our lock and key tour is actually a guided tour. And so that guides you through many spaces, and that includes the self-guided classic. This is something that we've heard lots of feedback on, of folks that would like to have those guided tours back. We are still working on that to see how we can make that within our structure of being self-sustaining. We have started introducing guided group tours again. And part of this is also finding interpreters that are willing to do that work and make that possible for folks as an offering. I will say, from what I'm seeing from an industry-wide perspective, quite a few places are going away from guided tours. And part of the reason why we had went away from it was due to the fact that that was the feedback we'd gotten from guests, is that they wanted to go at their own pace. They wanted to see things as they could going through. And so that was part of that strategy, going that way. And so we do hear from folks that they want guided tours to come back. We're looking at ways that we can make that happen. So just be patient. We'll see where we can take it, but I can't promise that we'll for surely have like regular guided tours for classic and full mansions coming back.
Perfect. And then the admissions question, just wondering if there are any discounts for admissions or memberships for UMD alumni.
So at this time, no. I will say with memberships, we typically don't have a discount on those, because there's some other features with that, some other benefits you get with it. As far as admission, that's the first time I've had that one brought up to me. We've looked at it, I know, for staff and faculty, and we have, for current students, it's free to come through. So that is one I will take back to the team, and we will see if that's maybe something that we could do.
Awesome. Well, then I think we'll end on this final question here. What has been the most surprising thing about the house and its treasures for you personally?
Oh, wow. So one of the things I knew as I started in this position was that all the different details throughout the house and all the handmade items were just exquisite, but I didn't realize to how big an extent it went. One of my favorite things that I discovered was, if you look at the pocket doors as you're going between certain rooms on the first floor, you'll see that they're two different wood species. So they were designed to match whichever side of the wall they were facing when they were closed. So it's just the amount of detail that went into some of those decisions is just amazing. And for me too, just seeing how people interact with Glensheen. and what they enjoy, and watching, guests of where they wander and what are the spaces that they really get into, and how can we find different ways to bring out that joy and that spark in folks in different ways. So I think that's been the most fun thing that I've had since I've been here. And I'm hoping that we can continue to find those little moments, but also find the little new things that we can geek out on and then share eventually with everybody else to geek out on as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dustin, for taking the time to share with us. And then for those of you that are not UMD alumni and are joining for the first time, our office hosts about 1 to 2 of these webinars each month, and you can join our mailing list by sending us an email, and we can add you to that. And then Dustin mentioned that Glensheen concerts on the piers are something that they do, and they actually have one tomorrow. So if anyone is local, feel free to swing by, and those are from 5 until 8, free outside of Glensheen. And so on that note, thanks again so much, Dustin, and thank you all for being here today, and we hope to see you again. Have a good day.